Hi class, my name is Dr. Jenny McCrae and I will be sharing with you some introductory comments and an overview for Module 1 and the things that you'll be reading and kind of helping to frame the WiseBoard book for the readings that you will do for Module 1. So one of the things that's really important to understand about your book, and the one I'm speaking about now is Productive Workplaces by Marvin Weisbord, is to understand that this is the 25th edition of this book, or the 25th anniversary edition of this book. It is the third edition. Usually, books will be edited a little bit more often than only 3 times in the course of 25 years, but this one really is a monster, and it is something that in order to really understand a variety of organizations, this is a great place to go to get a good view of many of the people who have influenced management and leadership thinking in a variety of organizations throughout the years. So this is a very important text. And in Module 1, you are tasked with reading chapters 1 through 6, which I know sounds like a lot, but we have 2 whole weeks to cover that. So I wanted to point out a couple of the things that are important for you to pay attention to when you read. And the first is that one of the major tenets of this book, or if you're looking at it from a very broad standpoint anyway, which is how Weisbord starts out, why did he write this book? What does he include in this book? What are you supposed to get from this book? How can you implement the things that you learn within your organizations from this book, those types of things. He talks about, and he gives a little chart in, I think it's the introduction or the foreword, where he basically says that, at the beginning of the turn of the century, basically the idea was that experts solve problems within management and organization. And then now we've really evolved, and he has a little visual in there that shows how we have evolved to the idea that everyone improves whole systems. So we're looking at organizations as systems. And so systems thinking and processes involving everyone and not just experts or not just managers really mushroomed throughout the years. And he provides a really good window into that through his own experiences and through providing a history of other people who have influenced this idea of organizational development, more human resource development, scientific management, systems leadership, change in organizations. People call it different things, but it's really how do people and organizations intersect to create an entire system. And how does that impact on other systems and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the big picture view of what we're going to be learning. Weisbord really provides the history, the principles and successful methods of improving organizations. And in order to do that, it's really important for us to understand that there are a variety of different types of organizations. The word itself can imply so many different things. So you can have private versus public corporations. Those corporations may exist to do a variety of different things. It could be a small, privately held natural resource company. Looks very different from maybe a multinational global aviation corporation that has different locations and different goals within, companies within companies, and everything in between, to a small business that's even a mom and pop shop is an organization. Classrooms and education, whether that's at public universities or private universities, public K through 12 education, private K through 12 education, private charter schools, public charter schools, nonprofit organizations, NGOs, small and large. So they're all a variety of types of organizations. But what he really has found and has boiled it down to, and what Weisbord has learned through many years of working with different organizations, but mostly for-profit companies as a consultant, and then also he ran a nonprofit after that, is that 3 major themes have emerged that he says really directs the work that he does and the work that we should do in understanding no matter what type of organization you're a part of. And number 1 is that people hunger for community in workplaces. It doesn't matter the type of the organization, people hunger for some type of community. Number 2 is that the world is moving too fast for expert problem solvers. There's just change everywhere at all levels of society, at all levels of organizations, and we can no longer develop experts that solve problems. Everyone needs to be part of problem solving and processes in organizations. And it also offers a very fresh interpretation of Theory X, Theory Y. Some of you may have heard of this before, depending on what your major is and depending on what your undergraduate degree was in. And we will talk more about this, but Theory X and Theory Y really has to do with fundamental assumptions that underlie human behavior in workplaces. And so he gets into that a little bit. This understanding of Theory X and Theory Y is going to be very important as we move forward. So that is a part of the work that you're going to want to pay a little closer attention to. He also offers history and profiles and contributions of Frederick Taylor, who is really the father of scientific management. He came from an engineering perspective. And then also of 4 social scientists, Lewin, McGregor, Emery, and Trist. And basically what he's doing there is he is showing you the evolution of how we have thought about organizations as systems, how to manage and lead those organizations, the evolution of the use of teams, the evolution of the use of a more human resource oriented philosophy in organizations. He touches on a little later in the book globalization and those kinds of things. So there is kind of a broad overview of what you'll be reading in the first few chapters. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 specifically, Weisbord goes over 10 myths that he used to believe, but that he no longer believes after several years, 5 or 6 decades, as a management consultant or as a leader, a business person over the last several years. So that's something to pay important attention to as well, because his experience has really shaped how he has constructed this book and the kinds of examples that he shows. So those 10 things that he no longer believes are important. Chapter 2 shares his own history in terms of how he got started. And then he introduces Frederick Taylor, and he introduces Theory Y. And the second paragraph on page 18 is really, there's a good description of what Theory Y is on there. And this really began an era of, like I said, more human resources, organizational development, and the people aspect of managing and leading. So he sets the foundation for that. He also talks about the importance of teams and the birth of the structure of teams and teaming. Then in part 2, which actually spans more chapters than what we will cover in module 1, but we're only going to do chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6 of part 2 for module 1. He talks about his own evolution of effective practices. Chapter 3 and 4 focus specifically on how to undo some of the problems that came from Taylorism and all of the things that Taylor had helped implement over time. It provides a very rich history of Taylor and Bethlehem Steel, and that history is very, very important. And then he profiles Kurt Lewin, where he influenced some very large-scale efforts. He also provides a window as to what can happen during I think you might find some parallels to current times, because he provides a window in rapidly changing societies and what happens when you are working on the right problem or problems, but you're focusing on the wrong solutions. And there's a cautionary tale for our current time of globalization, rapid technological change, changing organizations, political populism, and what happens when people divorce values but marry techniques. And so there's some interesting stuff that's in there that that you should pay attention to. It also provides a little bit of a history and the foundation of labor unions, which I think is really important. Our modern idea or modern understanding of labor unions often does not accompany an understanding of the purpose and the forces that unionization did in pre-industrial revolution, which is where Taylor did much of his work during, previously and during. He talks about how Taylor ultimately became sort of a boogeyman, but then ultimately provides us with some valuable contributions and lessons. So he's able to really give you the history and the whole perspective of this very important figure in how we understand organizations and management. And then chapters 5 and 6 focus on Lewin. Chapter 5 focuses on the history of Kurt Lewin, and chapter 6 focuses more on the legacy of Kurt Lewin. And he was really very oriented in doing by learning. So he sort of flipped that idea on its head in this idea of active action research and heavy experimentation with full participation by the participants. He gave birth to participative management, and you'll see as you read through there how he contributed to that. He was kind of on the fringe of psychology. He was influenced by Taylor, though. People called him the quintessential collaborator. And page 103 actually offers a really good overview of the practical implications of how his theory turned into actual managerial implications and this impact on the organizational system as a whole, and how teams and people within those organizations are the only thing that can sustain or help with constant change. So there is a very brief overview of the first 6 chapters of your book. We also will participate in the introductory forum and discussion board for Forum 1. And I'm also going to look for some additional interesting tidbits or websites related to Theory X, Theory Y, Lewin, and Taylor. And I will probably share those on discussion board. You have enough reading to do at the beginning without me putting, some more materials up front in the module. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to chat with you. We can have some office hours. We can FaceTime, we can Skype, you can email me questions, we can talk over the phone, whatever you would like and whatever would be helpful to you in learning a little bit more about chapters 1 through 6. If you're viewing this lecture and I'm not the instructor for your course, I can tell you absolutely unequivocally that Stacy, the other instructor for 802 this semester, is also available and very, very much wants you to learn and ask questions and engage with the material. So she also would offer the same offer to call her and to ask her questions. So I hope you have a great time reading chapters 1 through 6. It's really going to set the foundation for much of what we do and what we understand in this course.